What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sun Belt Syndicate. As you can see, we've got the Marshall Kelly green on, or at least I do. I'm proudly repping. These other guys are sorely lacking, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Sure hadn't made it yet here.
Yeah, we do have the mayor of Huntington, West Virginia, newly appointed. He was formerly the mayor of Boone. Now he's moved up to the mayor of Huntington, West Virginia, after this great pick this weekend. Before we get too far along, we're going to go touch on that further. We do want to tell you that, unfortunately, Bryce will not be joining us live on this episode right here, right now. However, have no fear. He is going to jump on with us later. We're going to record that episode, that interview. We will release that maybe late tonight, certainly by tomorrow morning for sure. He did have something come up that involves the athletes over there at Marshall. Obviously, we are going to bend to what he needs in order to get that done with what they've just gone through as a baseball program and everything that could be good after some big win like that. It needs to be celebrated or whatever they are doing. So obviously, we're going to let him do that. He will join us individually later, and we will bring that to you guys no later than tomorrow morning. But yeah, let's get back to this. Marv, you had the idea here. Why are we appointing Seth the mayor of Huntington, West Virginia?
So we had two ways to go, right? You could have been the mayor of Huntington or the most hated man in Hattiesburg. Seth caused a little controversy last week with his picks. Was getting a lot of shade thrown his way online. But hey, he's now the mayor.
There's a couple 40-year-old males in Hattiesburg that live in their parents' basement that weren't too happy with the picks this past week. No, I wasn't bullshitting by any means. You look at the series Southern Miss is due. A good ball team, but the rankings this week showed not a great ball team. They fell all the way to 23rd, I believe. But we've been talking. I've been talking. Don't sleep on Marshall, especially you two. You guys were ready to bury him after a sweep.
Back on us. I knew he was going to do that.
Listen,
we'll have to go back and find our second episode of the year when Hawaii beat Marshall. And everybody's like, we're not even talking about him the rest of the year. I'm like, whoa. And I think, was it Sunday? No, it was Saturday of the Georgia Tech series, right? Is when things started to slowly turn around a little bit. And then, I mean, conferences, they've slipped up a couple times, but you look at Marshall, especially Blevins going Friday night, that's almost a toss-up, and then they'll still one to the doubleheader. I mean, they were 2 runs from sweeping that series. Lost by 1 first game on Saturday. No, I'm not surprised at all. I wasn't blowing smoke by that pick. I fully, and I almost looked wrong too when they almost swept. So I'm not surprised at all, man.
I want to touch on something that we shared when some of the social media stuff blew up about it. There was a lot of people, as Seth said, trying to give him a hard time, but he was very confident in that pick. He texted the group chat his picks for the weekend, and he specifically kind of highlighted that one and said, yes, that's right. Marshall 2-1. You heard it here first. There was no doubt. He didn't accidentally luck into this. He called it, and he put his name behind it immediately. So full credit, man, because everyone was saying you're crazy. Everyone said, you're drinking some Kool-Aid, or Marv and I are drinking too much of the Southern Miss Kool-Aid. I'm not sure which way they felt like that was going, but full credit because he nailed it. And I don't think anybody else would have called that. I don't think anybody at 11.7 at the D1 staff. I don't think anybody had that. And not only did you get it right, like you said, you were maybe close to not getting it right if they would have swept, but you nailed the games too. So, I mean, full credit there.
And we'll highlight a little bit of this with Bryce, but like we were talking about before we went on, there was 2 dudes that threw 2 complete game shutouts, and with a total of 230 some pitches between the 2 of them.
Yeah, 234. It's crazy. So hindsight's always 20/20, right? But Southern Miss also almost lost their series the previous weekend to South Alabama. And I went back and kind of started looking at Marshall. 4-game series, halfway across the country to Hawaii. Hawaii's a pretty darn good baseball team. They're 19-8. Then they split from a now ranked Georgia Tech team. Then they rattle off 9 wins in a row. Now they get into conference and it's a little shaky, right? They dropped to JMU and Troy, but the 2 games that they lost in each one of those series were 1-run games. So they've been right there. So kudos to Seth for having the balls to step up and kind of see the future. He's a Swami, newly elected mayor of Huntington. And yeah, man, way to get a whole bunch of people talking online. Good job.
And we've been appreciate it. We've been debating this for, I think this is our 3rd week now. I think we're looking for that 4th team,
Yep.
that's 4th team is who we're searching for here. We've got 3. We know what we're getting every week. Especially
Well, do you now? You have to question that now.
Yeah, nah. Southern Miss is a good ball team, man. I mean, we've talked about how long of a baseball season is. It's consistency all the way through. We were high on Georgia State to begin with, and then we started sleeping on them, and then all of a sudden here they come again. It's definitely, and I think Caleb talked about it last week. It's called the Fun Belt for a reason. So it was definitely fun this weekend. Fun for me, for sure.
Yeah. I will get into that right now and bring up the weekly picks here in a second. I'm going to give Russ a shout out, man. I love working alongside of Russ in the background sometimes with the Thundercast podcast and same like that, obviously. Herd is a few games that could have gone the other way from a much better record. I think we've said the same thing about App State. That's why we're saying we're looking for that 4th team. Who can turn it on to then suddenly keep it a little bit more consistent? That's going to be your 4th team. Could that be Marshall? Absolutely. After this weekend, I have less doubts there. Could it be App State? I mean, they have the run support. They need to be a little bit more consistent on the mound, maybe.
Not with the RPI right now.
Well,
keep in mind they've still got Southern Miss and Coastal series, which winning those series against some pretty high RPI teams will help. But right now, and we'll go over this when we get to the standings. Right now, Georgia Southern, outside of the top 3, Troy, Coastal, and Southern Miss, Georgia Southern's got the 4th highest RPI in the conference at 57.
Yeah, which is a good one, but they've kind of dropped some games here too that a little surprising, or maybe they would hope to go the other way. So, Dominic,
even talking about a 4 team, I think the 4 team would have to win a conference championship or a tournament championship to be able to get in at this point, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple teams that I'm looking at that, App's going to have to obviously win a Southern Miss and a Coastal series and make it deep into the conference tournament. Then you look at the other teams, like I said, Georgia Southern, 57th, and then Texas State at 85 right now. And Texas State has Southern Miss this weekend. So maybe, if they could win that series, bump their RPI up. But, yeah, that 4th team, I think everyone at this point, the season ended today, you would assume that 3 teams are for sure in, maybe 1 host. But can we get that 4th team in to the College World Series again? And who's it going to be?
Right. And I know 11.7 seems to think Coastal's got the inside edge on being that host team from the Sun Belt. They still think there's work left to do. But go ahead.
Marv always talks about the term recency bias, and I think that goes along very well with Coastal.
That 11 RPI doesn't hurt them either.
No, and you're also thinking about a stadium that could hold, you're thinking about dollars as well.
A town that can hold people, place people would want to go.
And the most important factor of it all, you've got somebody on the committee. That ain't ever going to hurt you.
That doesn't hurt.
Nope, never going to hurt you. So,
hey, while we're talking about Coastal, that's a big one game out of the weekend for Arkansas State. Congrats to them. That's not the season that they're wanting to have, but taking at least one from Coastal, I mean, that's a pretty big deal in my opinion.
Yeah, let's talk about that now. We'll go full screen here and make this a little bit more readable with the weekly picks of the Sun Belt Series specifically. Overall standings now, I'm still bringing up the rear with a 10-22 record. Keep in mind, this is not just wins, losses for the series overall. You have to get the games right. I know a lot of people want to come up in the comments and say, y'all's records are terrible. Well, I venture to guess anybody else would be right close to us in these picks, at least maybe with Seth and Marv, maybe not as bad as me. My picks probably are a little bit worse, but bringing up the rear here at 10 and 22 overall, Seth and Marv are now tied at 13 and 19 overall. Again, none of these records sound all that impressive, but I'll tell you what, nobody grades as hard as we do. I put it on the social media one spot that said, we don't do any kindergarten grading here. So as hard as it can be, we do it that way. Hopefully people enjoy that aspect because you're getting an exact game layout of what we think is going to happen in each series. Seth, we kind of started on it, but look at that. I predicted Southern Miss to sweep the series. Didn't happen. Wasn't even close. Marv, you were a little bit closer there. You had 2-1 in favor of Southern Miss, which it also, kind of could have gone that way. But obviously, there's only one correct pick here, and it was Seth at 2-1. So, yeah, again, congrats on that one because that's the big turning point right there. Without that pick, Seth and Marv are not tied, and Marv takes the 1-game lead there. So, yeah, that was a big deal.
And I know we don't like jumping around on this podcast, but we're not talking much about Texas State, man. That's a little bit of a sleeper team right now. Have we been on since their midweek was Texas last week, right? We've not been on since then, correct?
No, we'll jump over to that if you want to, and then we can come back. That is,
we were joking around on the group thread, after I think they lost their last series and then come in and beat Texas. We're like, just don't schedule them on a Tuesday or Wednesday, because they took down the then number 1 team. I know Texas A&M slid quite a bit, but hey, maybe they're going to fly a banner in their stadium, Texas State champions.
Yeah, there you go. No, is number 5. Previously number 5. In fact, let me pull that up where Texas is at now because of that loss. Partly because of that loss. Well, actually, that's weird. They jumped up to number 2 in D1 rankings. So enough people ahead of them didn't do enough.
Very tough conference they play in as well.
Yeah, so now Texas State has beat the then number 1 and now number 2 team in the country. Hence their 85 RPI with a losing record.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They did get swept by the 170th team in the RPI as well, though.
Yeah, that did happen.
Yep. All right, so let's go back to these picks real quick. Coastal, you said you were giving them full credit. Marv, full credit for picking that one with A-State getting a game. But this is another series that was incredibly close all weekend. Those first 2 games going just 4-1 in favor of the Chants until A-State got the best of them in that last one. I don't know. Marv, talk about that. You were the only one to pick that one correctly.
I texted you guys and said no sweeps this weekend. Like, I just didn't see it happening. I felt like we were really getting into the meat and potatoes of conference play. I think every team in this conference is good enough to take 1 game off of anybody. It just is what it is. So that's the only reason for the pick. I mean, sweeps are hard. We know they are. I believe that series was that in Jonesboro.
It was in Conway.
It was in Conway. Okay, well, dang, if I would have known that, I probably would have picked the sweep. Ignorant but yeah, I mean, just sweeps are hard, right? And once again, every team can. You never know. You get the right guy on the mound who's throwing darts and play a little defense, a couple hits here or there. Anybody can beat anybody.
Sweeps are coming from the series we don't expect.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll speak about that one. The only one we had all weekend, Georgia State 3-0 to JMU. None of us predicted that one. 2-1 across the board in our picks, but I don't know. They've been hitting well this year, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out who they are. I still don't think I have a clue who they are, and I think they're 127 RPI. Kind of bodes, for that statement of they've got a great record, right? They're 21-13. They're tied for first in the conference, but not quite sure who they are. I think we'll find out a lot about them this weekend because they got Coastal.
I don't think they've played anybody. It's Georgia. I think they played Georgia Tech, and that's about it. Did you say Texas State's sitting at 80 RPI?
85th.
Those are some bad losses, man. Bad losses.
Yeah.
Because there's some really good wins.
Yeah, there's some really good wins. And the
Yeah, that's
Cajuns are 107. So I mean, yeah, to win a series against them, the two big midweeks. But like you said, Seth, you got swept in the opening weekend of conference by a team that's 177. So
Yeah.
yep. So I went heavy on the sweeps. I had Troy, Southern Miss, and Arkansas State all Coastal Carolina, USM,
Yeah.
and Troy all sweeping as all the ranked teams. The only one I was even close on, I guess, was well, I mean, I guess technically Coastal I was somewhat close on, but the Troy one, I don't know if I saw ODU coming up and winning one at the end there. Haven't been overly impressive throughout the season, but again, like Marv said, hard to get sweeps in this conference. So those are last week's picks, all graded, all the records now up to date currently before we get into this week's matchups. And then we will quickly kind of review what we had across the scoreboard for the Sun Belt midweeks and then the weekend games before taking a look at the standings. Obviously, Coastal had a great start to the week, 15-1 over Campbell Camels. They did it in just 7 innings. So really, really impressive game. Southern Miss almost equally impressive against a pretty decent Tulane team, 13-6, which is also a big rivalry there in that one. I don't know what else stands out to you guys on this one. Besides, obviously, we talked about the Texas State victory over Texas as probably being the biggest one of the night. We'll talk about that Clemson-Georgia Southern game.
Yeah,
Georgia Southern keeping that game close. Clemson's number 4, number 4 team in the nation now. So I think we were all three of us were really interested in that midweek last week, and it ended up being a really dang good baseball game.
It did, and that's what surprises me about them dropping 2-3 to South Alabama. And Dom, congratulations on that pick. You know, you never like to lose, but you know they're kind of right there. Once again, Southern's 57 RPI, hanging tough with a team like that. Kind of shocked me that they dropped that series to South.
Yeah, one to look back on now.
And then Georgia State losing to Kennesaw State. It's like, once again, it goes back to I don't know who these guys are.
Right. And I don't know specifically how Kennesaw State is this year. Historically, they've been pretty decent in baseball, though. So not a terrible loss from a historical standpoint. But with what Georgia State had put together so far into the season, you kind of look at that as one you definitely expect to win there on a midweek game like that. Looking back, Marshall getting the 2-1 walk-off victory against Eastern Kentucky. I mean, maybe at the time, obviously not all that impressive, right? Why'd you struggle with a team that wasn't very good? But guess what? Winning still matters, and winning can still roll over. So this was still a big victory in an exciting fashion too, right? I mean, it doesn't matter who you're playing against, whether the RPI is high or low. If you beat somebody with a walk-off victory, I mean, that just kind of helps the whole team, right? I mean, Marv, you probably even see it at the youth level, right? When it doesn't matter what the game went like. If you win it in the end like that, it's going to just do wonders for the team overall, right?
We won a game this weekend, scored 4 runs in the last inning to walk it off, got 1 hit. Everything else was walks and pass balls, and we played an absolutely crappy game. But you're down by 4 and come back and win the game. Everyone forgets about how bad you played. It's like, hey, we won. Like, wipe that crap off and go on. But no, I mean, in any sport, right? Momentum's contagious. Hits become contagious. If you got a guy on the mound that's throwing great and striking everyone out, bats go cold. I mean, just momentum plays a massive role in sports. That's why, once again, I thought with Georgia Southern staying close to Clemson, they could have, it wasn't a win, but you can take that momentum over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And winning's contagious too, man. I mean, we talk about that 4th team may not make the tournament, but look what that series for Marshall could have done going forward into next year or even the year after. That could be the start of something, Georgia, or you could go all the way back to the Georgia Tech series. You start stringing some wins together like that. That helps. That puts eyes. I mean, look how many eyes are out there looking at Marshall baseball right now. It helps in recruiting. It helps in the national aspect of things. They saw their opportunity and they took it and started in the midweek, and they just rolled all the way through the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. It definitely helped them position themselves for a good weekend, which they just had. Wednesday, we had number 20 Troy take down Florida A&M rather easily, 13-3, run ruled in the 7th. We had the Cajuns go down big to La Tech. Did not see this coming. I was not necessarily surprised Cajuns lost, but La Tech's not been great this year either. So to see this game 16-6 final, it did go all 9. This was not a run rule victory, but not a great showing there. And then definitely touch on the fact that Little Rock versus A-State was canceled due to that tornado that came through. So thoughts definitely with the people in that community, not necessarily directly in Jonesboro, but definitely all the surrounding areas, especially the ones that were hit really, really hard. I know they're still going through. Ben James put that up here a little bit ago. Continue to pray for Northeast Arkansas as this area has been hit hard by severe weather. It started last week in the midweek and has kind of continued even over into the weekend. So A-State was actually kind of lucky to get over to Conway and get out of the way of this storm and preceding storms, I guess, afterward as well. So anything of real big note on Wednesday, or does that kind of cover it?
I think you covered it all, buddy.
Yeah, I said we wouldn't talk about every game, but here we go. As far as the weekend's slate goes, we talked a little bit about most of these, but I guess I'll pinpoint the Georgia State victory. I mean, 10-0 in the first game, 7 innings only needed to beat the Dukes of JMU. Did you think that was kind of a lucky start, or did you guys expect them to kind of continue that after that outing on Friday night?
Well, like Marv said, who are they? Because the Friday before that, didn't they get beat 20-0?
Yeah.
Yes, by Georgia Southern.
So Fridays are kind of like the run rule. They don't know which end they're going to be on.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Because didn't they get run ruled the first Friday of the season? Of the conference season?
You're going way too far back in the memory bank.
Just a couple weeks ago. Somebody got run ruled the very first Friday. I think it was Georgia State.
I'd have to double check the notes
They're
on
on
that.
a streak of run rules on Fridays.
Interesting. But that would be, that's crazy if that's the case. They either get hammered or hammer somebody on the first one. Very interesting there. South Alabama doubles up Georgia Southern in the first one, 12-6. I don't know if I saw that kind of a score coming out of that one. But obviously, I think Seth, you picked that one correctly too? You had 2-1 South Alabama, or?
I think you're the only one that got that one correct. I think both
one. Okay.
2-1
Gotcha.
Southern. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had good feelings about South Alabama. Georgia Southern had a hot start, like you guys just said, or Seth just said specifically to last weekend's matchup, but they kind of cooled a little bit, so I didn't know what to think. And then, like we said, they played Clemson close, so why could they not have swept South Alabama? Well, weird things happen. Like we said, Fun Belt for a reason, right?
Caleb Cross.
Yeah, absolutely. 14-2 against ULM in just 8 innings on Friday night.
I think he had 8 Ks. Dude's quietly having a very good season. A very good season.
I know we'll talk about this when Bryce gets on the show, but Friday night has the potential to be just an amazing pitcher's duel in Huntington with Caleb versus Bryce. I would not be surprised for like a 2-3 type ball game with both guys going late into the game. I could be completely wrong. Somebody could get lit up. That's just baseball, right? But
right.
I will be tuned to the TV on Friday night watching that one.
Yeah. If I'm not in front of the TV, the phone will be in my face the whole time for that one. That's for sure. After the start Troy had against ODU 7-0 in that first one, I thought, okay, my pick looks good, right? Troy to sweep. But we know we move on through here. Again, Coastal and A-State, that score doesn't even move, right? 4-1 both days. We had some double headers. Troy squeaks by ODU really in that second one. They only win that one 4-3. The App ULM game was suspended in the 7th. I knew that would turn into what it did Sunday, right? ULM's up 13-6, looking pretty good. Now they have to stop playing. Then they got to pick it up the next day. You knew App was going to make a comeback there, right? I thought App could win the game because I was like, man, they can hit, right? And they can do just enough to keep ULM at bay. Obviously, we'll see that didn't quite happen, but I knew that was not going to be a good thing for the Warhawks. Anybody, really. It doesn't matter which team it is. If you're rolling, right? Marv, I don't know how many times this, and Seth, maybe even too, how many times has like a game been delayed and you come back and you're just not the same at the youth level too?
I'm surprised that they just suspended it in the 7th. maybe I'm a little naive to what the minimum innings played for a game, but I thought they just would have said, hey, up by 7, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am a little surprised too. I don't know exactly the ruling on that. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, you'd think you've got a weekend set where you've got one the next day. Just call it and
Yeah.
whatever. Doubleheader the next day. All right, though. There it is, though. Marshall actually almost gets by Southern Miss for 2 straight, right? They only go down 4-3 in that second game or that
It was a
first
tied
game
ball
on
game in the
Saturday.
8th, and they gave up a run.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have had that. Almost had a sweep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been even crazier, and I don't think Southern Miss would have found themselves in the standings had they just been swept by Marshall.
I agree
So,
with How about
interesting.
South Alabama puts up 12 on Friday and then comes back and puts up 18 in the
18.
first game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Hey, but kudos to Georgia Southern. You just gave up 30 runs in 2 games, come back in game 3 and avoid the sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's important for little things, right? Like RPI, that's a big reason, right? You get swept by South Alabama, you're dropping in the RPI a little bit more than where you're at. You said what, 57? Is that what you said? Where they're at?
I need to go back and look and see where they were going into that game. You would think that they probably dropped 5 to 8 spots.
Yeah. Well, then we wrap it up on Sunday. Again, the ones that were completed Saturday aren't on this one because they just didn't play Sunday. Someone asked me about that before. Said, "Hey, you forgot some series." I said, "Nope, didn't forget them. They wrapped up Saturday, so they're on Saturday's graphic." I try to keep it as clean as possible, right? There's a lot of yellow that gets put on here for the series victories, and if there's extra innings, it just becomes a little too much. But yeah, ODU gets the best of Troy in that second or that third game, I guess I should say. Troy still gets the series victory, knowing that they had the series victory before Sunday. You think that, occasionally teams are maybe letting off the gas a little bit in that regard, or is it really just ODU battling enough to get one?
I don't think any team at this level would let off the gas, right? I mean, you've got your Sunday guy; he's going to be your Sunday guy. Sweeps are hard. I hate to simplify it like that and sound redundant, but they just are.
Yeah, good point. Very true. Ben was glad Marv was right about the A-State versus Coastal. Yeah, because Seth, I thought, and I both picked the sweep in that one for Coastal.
And that was both the Arkansas State Coastal series and the Cajuns Texas State series. Those were tight. Like there was not a lot of runs scored. It was phenomenal pitching. Maybe you can say it was crappy offense, but just really good baseball.
Yes, it was very much good baseball. Oh, look who it is! Already
Coming
just in time.
There he is.
Between those two, how many do they have on Friday?
Sorry, Seth, you're gonna have to go again. I think we're all talking at one time there for a second.
What's up, Artie? What was the apps? How many app runs did they have on Friday?
They had 14.
14.
Jeez, that's 42 runs in 3 games. I
They
didn't
can
realize.
They can absolutely hit. It must be nice going on the mound knowing that if I can hold the other team to like less than 5 runs, we can probably get a win.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've traditionally had one day that goes sideways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Artie joined the show just in time to see his Texas State Bobcats take down the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns 4-3 on Sunday to come away with a 2-1 series victory. Hasn't happened often. They haven't beat the Cajuns too many times in league play. I think just once previously. So that was a big one for multiple reasons. And the first is what we're going to see here, which is the standings. And we have 4 teams. That's right. 4 teams tied atop the leaderboard right now, all sitting at 8-4. There's 3 that are not going to surprise you: Troy, Coastal Carolina, and Southern Miss. Yeah, we expected that. We know that. Georgia State, had you asked me who the 4th team was and didn't put this in front of me, I would have never told you Georgia State was the 4th team in this grouping at 8-4. I mean, maybe I should have known, off the math. That tells you how big and important a sweep of anybody is, right? They're the only team to get it done this weekend, and it's put them in a tie for first place, technically. I'm not even getting into the tiebreakers here, so I am listing this. I think that the tiebreaker, as it's kind of being shown here right now, is the overall standings. I mean, the overall record. I'm sorry. So until these teams really start playing each other more, I'm not going to worry about tiebreakers until closer to the end of the season. So right now, we'll just stay with the tiebreakers. I believe the conference is also using at this moment, which is the overall records there. Which, again, that grouping of the top 4, all over 20 wins. I think we've mentioned that before, but Georgia State now included in that with those 3 straight victories this past weekend. What else is standing out to you guys on these standings here as we look at them right now today?
For me, it's just a bunch in the middle. I mean, from App to Arkansas State, I hate to admit ODU from that because they have a 5-7 record, but they've only won 9 games overall. But somebody in that middle bunch is got to make a run, and someone's going to fall off, right, and kind of start to get separated from the pack. And who's that team going to be? I mean, I know we'll talk about it here in a little while, but just looking at the matchups that are coming up this week, Coastal could kind of humble Georgia State a little bit this week. App and Marshall, that's a really big series when you really look at that. Let's see.
Or could Georgia State humble Coastal a little bit?
It could go that way. I mean, if they take 2 or 3 from Coastal, then we're sitting there thinking, hey, yeah, they are the 4th team, right? That's definitely going to help their RPI quite a bit.
The 4th team or the top 3 team?
Yeah, and then another big series, Southern Miss, Texas State.
Yeah, we'll definitely
good baseball this weekend.
Can Southern Miss rebound, and can Texas State keep it going?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this weekend will definitely. This weekend's a lot of the contenders, pretenders. I think we'll find out a lot after 3 games this weekend.
Yeah. Ben's got a question. When does college baseball regular season end? So for the Sun Belt, the last day will be Saturday, May 17th. They won't go Sunday, as the conference tournament will get started up that very next week. I believe, obviously, there's going to be a couple different conferences that end on slightly different days. But for the Sun Belt, Saturday, May 17th will be the last regular season day. And then the conference tournament starts up that Tuesday with those play-in games, one off. Losing, you're out, which is kind of cool. I like that aspect because then you get the second chance opportunities where you're in the winners or losers bracket. Because I think, like we've talked about before, baseball is kind of a different entity as far as a sport goes, where like your pitcher is very helpful in determining a win-loss, a lot of times. So it's not fair when you can't throw your best guy against everybody, right? Like it's just not realistic, can't be done. So you've got to give chances. You've got to give teams numerous chances to kind of get things done in that regard.
That's why the coaches make the big bucks, man. Managing arms throughout a tournament is crucial. You got to think about, you always, and we go through this in youth baseball, and it's completely different because we've got 11 kids on our roster, but we played 5 games this last weekend, and you're always being conservative of, I want to save my best guys, but you can't get to the dance, you can't win the race with your fastest car in the garage, right? So if things start to go awry in game 2, you got to make it to game 3. So like, oh crap, we got to throw this kid. And then you got to start looking at, okay, if we win this game, who do we play next? Who matches up best against that team? It's like mental gymnastics. So kudos to the coaches out there, because when you get in that tournament setting, especially if you're one of those lower seeded teams that really starts to make a run, managing your arms is so important.
Absolutely. One final note here is like Marv said, that jumble in the middle. 2 games separate App State technically in second place, right? Because we have 4 tied for first. So technically App State in second place, all the way down to ODU. 7-5 for App State, 5-7 for ODU. Again, a 3-game sweep, massive swing for anybody at this point in the season, and could greatly separate the top too, right? Like if you have one of those that sticks out and gets a sweep, we'll talk about that right now coming up. But first, we got to talk about the best in class. And look at that. We finally don't have 3 in the show at this point in time. I don't know. Should we have left Southern Miss in the show, or losing to Marshall and almost losing 3 is what put them in AAA?
No, if it's a week-to-week basis, they just drop 10 places in the poll. You can't continue to keep somebody there. So no, I think we're all in agreement with the two in the show.
Yeah. I think you compound that with the fact that they almost dropped a series to South Alabama the weekend before that. You know, I think Southern Miss is a phenomenal baseball team, but they are last couple of weeks have been trending a little bit down, in my opinion.
I think the last 2 weeks in a row, if I'm not mistaken, their record is 2-2 each week overall.
Yeah.
So that doesn't bode well. I'll be honest, I was surprised to see them ranked at all. I'm glad they're ranked because that tells us a couple things, right? They still believe that Southern Miss is a good baseball team, and that's also showing a little credence to what Marshall's able to do. I think they are looking a little bit deeper at Marshall and what their record is coming in, having played Hawaii pretty well, having played and beaten Georgia Tech 2 times. So, I think they are rewarding the Sun Belt as a whole, and I like that. I know that there's some rankings out there where like we have one team in. I don't. It's like Marv was talking about before too. Like there's so many rankings. Like which one are we going by? We're just going to go by D1 baseball, as NCAA uses that as their top 25 every week. So it's just kind of easiest to keep up with. And in that one, we are lucky enough to have all three still in the rankings, even though some rankings only have 2 teams from the Sun Belt, and there are a few rankings out there that only have 1. I think I even saw one today that had 0, which I'm like, I'm not even giving credit to this top 25. That's ridiculous. You're not even trying if you don't have at least 2 Sun Belt teams in there at this very moment. So I don't know what else we got in here. So we've got Marshall and Southern Miss in the same AAA, but we've also got App State and Georgia State. As Seth was saying, this is kind of basing it more on the week-to-week status with what App State was able to do against ULM, looking pretty impressive, and then kind of sparking that comeback in that Saturday or that I guess Saturday. No, it was Sunday. I'm sorry. Now I'm going. The Saturday game that got suspended and it got finished Sunday still had a chance to come back in that one. I'm not sure if that one got all that close had it been played all the way through. You guys think that would have maybe been something, or is it just impossible?
You absolutely never know.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, just go ahead, Seth.
Yeah.
Going back to the best in class, I think we've kind of leveled out a little bit. I don't think we're bashing Dom as much each week as what we were to begin with. I think we're kind of all in agreement with what we got. The only thing I might change in that one, don't sleep on the Bobcats. If we're going week to week, big midweek last week and then 2 or 3 from the weekend, I think if you're going to put App and Marshall in there, you can't leave you can't leave Texas State out. So that's the only thing I would
This is going to look drastically different next week, right? Because you got
probably
App and Marshall playing. Whoever wins that series probably stays in AAA. The loser goes back down. You got Southern Miss and Texas State. Texas State takes that series. You got to move them up. I don't know if you necessarily move Southern Miss down. So there's going to be some movement this week. I think this is almost the midpoint of conference slate. So it's about time for things to get sorted.
And you could easily put Arkansas State and ODU in AA. If we're going off the weekend, each team took one win off of a ranked team. So I think you got ULM and JMU. It's just kind of bringing up the rear. You're not expecting a whole lot out of them too, but I think, ODU and Arkansas State each had a ranked win last weekend. So no, but it's I think it's especially the AAA and the show. I think we can all agree on that pretty well.
Yeah.
Agree. Ben asking us if we'll preview spring games for football. I'm not going to preview anybody's spring game.
Ben is all about some Sun Belt sports, buddy.
Yeah, man. Coastal Carolina already completed theirs too. It's the spring games are too hard to keep up with because there's just not enough to go off of. I know there's people that will find things, but with us being remote from most of these institutions, I mean, Marv and I are 3 hours from the closest Sun Belt school. Seth is just down the road. Are you going to the App Spring game, Seth?
No.
Okay.
No,
just checking
at all. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up kind of the best in class as we look at it. Again, a lot of groupings that will change drastically, as Marv said, after this weekend as well. Here is the slate as we know it for the midweeks before we get to this weekend's matchups. We've got kind of a regional rivalry there with Coastal going up against UNCW, which is UNCW kind of dropped off. I know they had a pretty hot start to the year, but I don't think I've heard so much about them lately.
I think they're still a pretty decent baseball team. Historically, they have been. I mean, obviously, a school that doesn't have football can pour additional resources into other sports. I made the comment earlier about Texas State trying to win the Texas State championship, but they get another chance to do that this weekend. And then I guess the game that everyone will watch is Southern Miss versus Alabama.
Yeah, that one's definitely going to be high on the radar. Note that Texas State got squashed, let's say, by Baylor previously. So they're going to want some retribution and some revenge. Obviously, having already taken down Texas A&M in Texas, to add Baylor to that as the unranked team, right? Baylor's not even a ranked baseball team. So I think we're going to see a flip of the score here in Texas State versus Baylor. I hope to see that. Obviously, that's not going to be so easily done, but we hope to see that. UT RGV is taking on the Cajuns, and we know that they are a really good team out of that Southland Conference.
Yeah.
But they are playing in Lafayette, so hopefully that plays to their favor. Cajuns probably a little upset about how the weekend went for them, so maybe they can get some revenge. A-State against Arkansas. I don't think it's likely, but I would love to see a victory over another number one team for the Sun Belt.
Yeah,
that would be cool. And indirectly, everybody should want that. Why? Because that helps the whole schedules or the whole conference's RPI, right? Because then,
hey, you win that game, Arkansas State, you might get into a regional. We saw it happen last year.
Ask JMU. Hey, that Jacksonville State Georgia State game is a sneaky good baseball game as well.
Very, very true. I think that's true. Jacksonville's matching up against Georgia Southern, I believe, for the second time this year as well. ULM, actually, we'll touch on that one, plays Northwestern State, and they play them back-to-back on Wednesday. We actually saw, just before we went live here, the Marshall and App State games got moved from Tuesday to Wednesday because of the weather currently going on and possibly continuing. But we have some other good matchups on Wednesday as well. App State going up against Western Carolina for the second time. We'll see if they can get some revenge as they lost that first one. Marshall and Ohio, again, big-time rivalry. We'll definitely be asking Bryce about that one coming up here shortly, very shortly now, actually. Georgia Southern goes against Mercer, but look at that middle matchup there.
Yep.
20 versus 25, a top 25 showdown between Troy and Virginia Tech. Definitely going to be checking that one out, right, fellas?
I'll tell you one thing. I was in Blacksburg last week working, and I drove through Virginia Tech's campus for the first time. What a beautiful place. It's really pretty. And that baseball stadium it's pretty.
Yeah. Their campus as a whole is very impressive. They have that big kind of military aspect with the ROTC program that they have there. And you just know stuff's going to be pristine on a campus like that. And then obviously Cajuns versus La Tech. I think that's one that they want to get revenge on as well. So there's a couple revenge games in here this week in the midweek. So we'll see if that plays into the Sun Belt's favor, as I know a couple of those in the past haven't gone so great. But here we are, weekend series in the Sun Belt. Marv touched. Did you name them all out earlier, or did you just name a couple of them?
I think I named a good majority, but once again, there's just some. I'll just give my opinion real quick. That Coastal Georgia State game is a claim dominant series, right? Like
sure.
The Troy playing against JMU, that's a further yourself. Cajuns ULM, no offense to ULM, but the Cajuns could bounce back. At Marshall, massive series. Can Georgia Southern bounce back against ODU's kind of dwelling in the bottom? I hate to say this, but South Alabama, Arkansas State. I mean, South Alabama needs to get hot now if they're going to do anything, and that's kind of the series to do it. And then once again, Southern Miss, Texas State. Can Texas State stay hot, and can Southern Miss rebound?
Yeah. Seth, what are your thoughts real quick on the
I found this on the web. Do it, and then
three big series: Coastal, Georgia State, at Marshall, Southern, and Texas State. Like Marv said, I'm also interested to see who Georgia Southern really is. Let's see what they can get turned around, if they get it turned around. But really 3 big series that I'm watching this weekend.
Yeah, I'll say this from the outside perspective, just looking at the big picture. How do you want it to go? If you want the best of the best in this conference to help us get to where we need to go, this isn't going to be anybody's favor unless you're one of the top 3 teams right now, one of the ranked teams we have in this conference. If we want this conference's RPI to go up and a 4th team to kind of help jump in, we have to have those top 3 teams continue winning. Okay. Again, this isn't an explanation that a lot of people are going to like, but this is what would have to happen to get more teams or a better shot at more teams within the NCAA regionals. So that would be Coastal, Troy, and USM winning in a little bit more of a dominant fashion. And then, like you guys said, maybe Georgia Southern, they've got that best RPI in the conference outside of those top 3. If they can put it together against ODU and get a sweep, now you're looking at something more consistent as far as, that 4th team and pushing the whole conference up as a whole, because then those top 3 teams continue to play each other. It's not going to hurt so much because they've done the work against the lesser teams, so be it. But then again, there's a wild cards in here, right? Marv just talked about South Alabama. You've got App State and Marshall. They're not going to want to let up on either one of those sides of the thing. So it's going to be fun, though. I mean, that explanation said, I don't really care what happens outside of our favorite team, but it's going to be a fun weekend of baseball to watch and see where all the movement happens.
Can't wait to see you boys' picks this weekend.
Yeah, that is going to be very interesting to see how we have it all lay out this weekend. Sunday was A-State's win against Coastal. First win a top 25 team since 2020 is what Ben is saying. Number 18 Dallas Baptist, and the first Sun Belt Conference ranked win since 2019 versus a number 10 Coastal at the time. He's also hoping that A-State beats Arkansas tomorrow. If you do that, Ben, that's going to be huge. Taking out a number 1 team, no matter who it is, but A-State versus Arkansas doesn't get to happen too often in other sports. So if you can take them down in baseball, maybe you should write in a little contract agreement that they have to play you in some other sports there. So we'll see if that type of thing happens. But any last notes before we wrap this up so we can kind of get off of this one and then jump into the recording with Bryce here shortly?
No, just go ahead, Seth.
I feel like we're a broken record talking about the upcoming series every week, but we knew what we had with 3. Now we're just interested to see what we have with 4 or 5. This is where it gets fun. You're in the meat and the potatoes of the conference season, and you're watching not just Friday, but you're watching all weekend just to see when we get Monday how we've separated. So it's a fun time right now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Marv, you had some last note there?
Nah, just kind of follow along what Seth said. This is we're getting to the point in the season where that middle pack has to separate, and someone's got to claim right to say, hey, we're the 4th team. We deserve a shot in the tournament. And it's time for those top teams to start beating up on some of the lower teams and really staking their claim to it. But a couple, like Seth said, a couple really big series, man. I'll be we've got another tournament this weekend, so I won't be able to watch as much baseball as I want to, but I'll be glued to the TV Friday night.
Same here. My parents are coming into town for my son's birthday, so I will be sneaking peeks as much as I can, and having to go back and watch some, I'm sure, on replay a little bit too. But you are welcome to move on to whatever you're doing for the rest of the night. If that's watching the basketball national championship, so be it. We are about to jump in an interview with Bryce Blevins that we will give you all late tonight or early tomorrow morning for your enjoyment. So thanks for tuning in, and be sure to check out that interview as soon as it drops.